people talk a lot about food and stress, but if you're not sleeping well, your body is already working against you. From hormone balance to brain detox, appetite, skin health, and emotional regulation, sleep is involved in nearly every process within your body. So if you've been overlooking your sleep, this episode is your wake-up call. I'm so excited to dive into this content, but before we do, let's read the review of the week. This one is by Jenna Bites. She said, Maria's The Health Habit podcast is a gem. It's all about making small, sustainable changes that add up to a healthier lifestyle. What I love most is it's not about quick fixes or extreme diets, but about building long-term habits that truly stick. If you are looking for a realistic and inspiring approach to health and wellness, this podcast is a must listen. Thank you so much, Jenna. This is exactly what I'm trying to create, so it brings me so much joy to read this review. If you are enjoying the podcast, please go leave an honest review of your own on Apple Podcasts. I can't wait to read what you have to say. Are you tired of feeling overwhelmed by health advice, struggling to stay consistent, and craving more ease in your diet and calm in your mind? Then you are in the right place, my friend. Welcome to the Health Habit Podcast. I'm Maria, a nature-loving herbalist, science-obsessed nutrition therapy practitioner, and your guide to holistic healing. If you're ready for simple wellness solutions, nutrition tips, and mindset shifts to help you feel energized, fulfilled, and in control of your health, then brew up some tea or crack open a kombucha, and let's get into it. If you are loving these deep dives into holistic health, don't forget I sent out a free weekly newsletter with even more tips to support your sleep, hormones, energy, and overall well-being. If you want to join a community of empowered, health-focused women, and yes, I see you too, guys, head over to thehealthhabit.net/newsletter or just tap the link in the show notes. I have struggled with sleep for most of my life. When I was young, I had vivid nightmares, but I also found out later in my life that I had actual night terrors where I would wake up screaming, fighting. It was a lot for my parents to handle, and it's pretty intense. And I've also suffered from insomnia, literally all the things. So sleep has become a really important thing for me. I've gone through periods where I obsessed over my sleep, but I finally found balance, and I've realized just how important this topic is. And that led me to do a really deep dive into sleep research. I spent over 16 hours dedicating myself to researching sleep, and we're going to touch on a lot of that in today's episode. Just to stress how important sleep really is to our overall health and wellness, if I had to pick just 3 areas to focus on, the very first one that I would pick, call it a pillar of health, would be sleep. Then a nutrient-dense whole food diet, and then nervous system regulation. So this is a really important topic, and I'm excited to dive in. So grab your notepad or get your video recorder ready, because you're going to want to save this information for later. For a long time, sleep was surprisingly mysterious. We knew we needed it because scientists have done some pretty horrible studies with sleep deprivation, depriving animals of specific sleep phases, and these test subjects have died. So it's obviously crucial for survival, but we didn't really know what was happening and why it mattered. Until recently, let's call it over like the past 5 years or so, we've actually found out exactly what's happening and why sleep is important, and there's still so much research to be done in this area. The first thing that we need to know in order to really understand why sleep is so important is the different phases. So sleep is broken down into 2 main phases, non-REM and REM. REM stands for rapid eye movement. Non-REM has 4 different phases: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. And we go through this really interesting sequence. So you start off in the lighter stage 1 non-REM sleep, and then you move into stage 2 non-REM, and then stage 3, and then stage 4, and then back up. So stage 3, stage 2, and then stage 1, and then you have that REM or rapid eye movement sleep. And this sequence, so stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1 REM, happens in roughly 90 minutes. Now, this will vary from person to person, and men do tend to have a slightly longer cycle by about 10 to 15 minutes. And you do not need to structure your wake-up times around this 90-minute window. How much time you spend in each phase changes depending on what part of the night it is. So in the first half of the night, you spend more of that 90-minute window in the deeper non-REM stages of sleep. So that is stage 3 and 4. And then the second half of the night, you spend more time in REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. Now, this is because the deeper non-REM stage 3 and 4 sleep phases is where most of that physical restoration happens. We have brain detox occurring, a building up of the immune cells in the body, lots of other really physically important tasks for survival. And then REM sleep, they found, is more important for emotional regulation, mental health, creativity, and problem solving. So you can kind of think of it as the deep non-REM stages of sleep are essential for survival, and then the REM stages of sleep kind of give us a little bit of an advantage as a human species because we have more problem solving and we're able to wake up with new ideas and an ability to kind of remove the emotionality out of the memories and pivotal experiences that we had while we were awake. Let's break down what's happening during each phase of sleep. So stage 1 of non-REM sleep is pretty much just your transition period. So it's when we're first starting to fall asleep. Our eyes will start to roll in their sockets, and we experience something called a hypnagogic jerks. This is when our body literally just jerks, and this is because as we're falling asleep, we lose what's called proprioception, which is the perception of where our body is in space. And this happens because a portion of the brain called the thalamus essentially turns off its gates. So it will receive sensory input, but it doesn't share that input to the areas of the brain that then perceive it. So we're getting sensory input, but it's being blocked so that we can focus on other things that are happening in the brain. And I will note that there are certain brain regions that are more active during sleep than they are during wakefulness. It is pretty crazy. During stage 2 sleep, we have these really cool things developing called sleep spindles. So essentially what's happening is our brain waves are slowing down, but each wave is much stronger. So it's got a higher amplitude. And this is because we have a bunch of different neurons in the brain firing all at the same time. They are becoming synchronized, and this is what's creating those sleep spindles. And the sleep spindles, they are found to be very, very important to all of the benefits of sleep. Then we have stage 3 and stage 4. So we're still going to be having those sleep spindles, but the waves just slow down more and more. So when we're in that stage 3 and 4 sleep, they're as slow as they're going to get, and our brain activity is a lot lower. We are still going to have things happening in the brain. There's never a time when the brain is completely off, but it's so much slower. And this allows you to catch up on brain detox. They have essentially found that there is a sort of sewage system in the brain called the lymphatic system. And during these stage 3 and 4 non-REM phases of sleep, the brain cells shrink, and there's always this liquid that's in the brain. So the brain cells are shrinking in size, which means that the liquid is able to get into more crevices, and while we're awake and our brains are functioning, we naturally have a buildup of toxic proteins. And during this deep sleep, when those brains are shrinking and the liquid is getting in more of the areas, the liquid can essentially grab that toxic buildup and then sweep it out of the brain. So super important brain detox is occurring. The other really key thing that is happening in those deeper stages of sleep is as we're awake, we're also building up a metabolite, which is just a compound that forms in the body, called adenosine. And adenosine causes something called sleep pressure. So essentially, there's a bunch of adenosine hanging out in the brain, and the brain's like, holy cow, I need to sleep, and it starts to make you feel more and more tired. So during these deeper stages of sleep, the lymphatic system is also clearing away that adenosine, so that when we wake up, we are more able to function, we feel awake, we're ready to go. The other really key thing to note with the deeper stage 3 and 4 periods of sleep is that we switch over to the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the rest and digest portion of the nervous system. And when this happens, we have lower blood pressure, we have those immune cells that start restocking, our bodies become more sensitive to immune signals, so our immune system is more just ready to go when we wake up. And then it also helps regulate the metabolic system, specifically blood sugar regulation. They have found that when you sleep deprive yourself, specifically of these deeper non-REM stages of sleep, the pancreas is not able to produce a really key hormone called insulin. And insulin is the main hormone that regulates blood sugar levels in the body. If you want to learn more about that, listen to episode 4 of my podcast. It deep dives into carbohydrates. So the deep non-REM sleep is allowing the pancreas to produce enough insulin when we're awake, but it also is going to affect insulin sensitivity, so how well your body responds to the insulin hormone. Another really key thing that's happening is memory and learning. Essentially, those sleep spindles are like clearing the memory centers in the brain and then transferring those memories to long-term storage so that we can actually remember them when we wake up, because we only have so much storage space in that brain region. So during wakefulness, we have this one area of the brain, we put all of our memories into that area. Once it gets full, we can't really retain any more memories, and then our bodies rely on sleep to transfer the memories from that temporary storage site into long-term storage. So super interesting, very important for memory and learning. So those are the key things that are happening during deep stage 3 and 4 sleep. Blood pressure is going down, we're restocking the immune cells, we are increasing sensitivity to immune signals, we're regulating insulin levels and the ability of pancreas to produce insulin, we're regulating memory and learning, and we are cleansing the brain of toxic proteins, specifically things like beta amyloid and tau protein. When our body transitions into REM sleep, we literally become paralyzed. Brain paralyzes the body. There are only 2 muscles that are active, one in the ear and one in the eye, which is why we call it rapid eye movement, because we see the eyes moving back and forth a lot in the sockets. And at this point, we stop seeing those synchronized brain waves, which I will add, move from like the front of the brain to the back in like a very steady motion. It's crazy. So when we're in REM sleep, our brain waves are pretty much identical to when we are awake. So it's chaotic, there's spikes all over the place, but remember, we're not receiving sensory input in the same way. Now, during REM, the thalamus partially opens back up. So we're not reacting to sensory input because we're paralyzed, but we're able to internally experience it as if we were actually experiencing it. But there are some emotional centers that are shut down in ways that they're not during wakefulness, or more active in ways that they're not during wakefulness. So we have this recipe where our brain is essentially awake, but our body is completely paralyzed. We are experiencing and reliving memories, but we're only able to respond within our brains, and the really intense emotionality areas are shut down. So we're experiencing them in such a way where the emotionality is more dulled, but we can work through them. It's kind of like our brain's special therapy session. So this is why REM is so crucial to mental health. So that is your crash course on all things sleep. But let's take some time to talk about the natural cycle of alertness throughout your day. When you first wake up, you're going to experience something called sleep inertia, and this is very natural. It is essentially the transition of your brain realizing I'm no longer asleep, now I'm awake. So you feel a little groggy, it takes a little bit of time to get fully awake. Now, generally, sleep inertia should not happen for more than 90 minutes. Every person will be slightly different, so some people have shorter amounts of sleep inertia, others just naturally have a long amount, but if it's going over 90 minutes, you are probably sleep deprived, so I would suggest waiting to have coffee until you're at least after that 90-minute window. That way you can assess how well you're sleeping. If you just immediately have caffeine right after waking, you never really know how well rested you are, and as we have already discovered, sleep is so important for health and well-being, so you really want to know if you need to be prioritizing sleep in a different way. So that covers sleep inertia. Ideally, when you wake up, you will have at least slept for 7 to 9 hours. Your body requires that amount of time to properly clear adenosine, which is that compound that naturally builds up during the day and causes something called sleep pressure. And that sleep pressure is one of 2 reasons why your body starts to get tired and puts you to bed. The other thing that is causing that natural sleepiness is your circadian rhythm. So essentially there's a bunch of clocks in the body that regulate different aspects of your physiology. There's one called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN, and that regulates your circadian rhythm. Now, your circadian rhythm is really sensitive to light, and I will add that your eyes pretty much evolved just to experience light and dark cycles. It's more so about getting light into your brain than it is about actually seeing motion, which is pretty wild. So when you wake up, there should be more light coming in, and this tells your body, you are awake, let's get alert, let's get rolling. And then throughout the day, the light levels go down, and you will gradually start to feel more sleepy. Adenosine is the other factor, so around 16 hours of being awake, you have a peak of that adenosine, the light is starting to go down, so your circadian rhythm is like, alright, we're starting to get sleepy, your brain's like, yeah, I have a pretty high sleep pressure, and then you go to bed. These are happening independently of one another. So it's really important to be aware of both in order to properly regulate your sleep. The other thing I would like to mention here is that caffeine and coffee, it works by quieting the receptor that tells you how much adenosine is in your brain. So essentially, your brain doesn't know how much adenosine or sleep pressure it has, and so you're able to feel more alert. We can have crashes from caffeine intake because our brains are still building adenosine while we have that caffeine in our system, but once the caffeine wears off, we have so much adenosine that our bodies are like, holy cow, I'm immediately sleepy. And then some people will grab for more caffeine, they'll grab for sugar to offset that sleepiness, and that can create a roller coaster effect that's not great for the body. So those are all the different factors to consider in like the main view of your natural sleep and wake cycle. The other thing that I want to mention is that it is 100% natural and hardwired into our brains to have a dip in alertness around the middle of your day. This is called the postprandial dip because it generally happens after lunch. And that's why in Europe, they will have siestas midday where you have lunch, you enjoy some time with your family, and you take a nap. And you can use naps strategically to achieve your health goals. So if you want to just feel more alert and energetic, during that postprandial dip, you can take a 20-minute nap. If you want to activate that deep sleep so you can have more brain detox happening and more physical restoration, say if you're getting over being sick or you just had a surgery, something like that, you can have a 30 to 40-minute nap. And then if you need to have that REM sleep occurring, for example, to help boost your mental health and emotional regulation, then you're going to want to aim for a 60 to 90-minute nap. And regardless of the duration of your nap, if you are going to nap, I would try to time it around that postprandial dip. And the time will be slightly different for each person because we don't all have the same circadian rhythms, right? For some people, they naturally want to go to bed at like 9 p.m. and then others are night owls and they just don't, like their bodies just aren't wired to want to go to bed before, say, like 11 p.m. And so take some time and just discover what is your ideal sleep cycle and try to time your schedule around that. There is no right or wrong. You are not lazy because you want to sleep until 10 a.m. Your body might just actually be predisposed to having that be your wake up time. We are all different. It's just the unfortunate reality that our society is built around early birds. So we tend to shame people that want to stay up late and then sleep in late. But beware, every single person has a natural rhythm that they should ideally be structuring their life and schedule around. The term used to describe this is called your chronotype. If this has inspired you to start experimenting with strategic napping, just make sure that your naps aren't negatively impacting your nighttime sleep, because nighttime sleep should always be the priority. There's a lot more that we could cover here, but we're getting close to time, so I am going to wrap up and make this a multi-episode series. So definitely tune in if you're interested in learning more about sleep in the future. With that being said, what can we do? What are the first steps to improving and prioritizing our sleep in a new way? And I would say two things. One, I want you to start getting curious about what is your personal chronotype. If there was no external circumstances, when would you want to go to bed and when would your body naturally wake you up? Just start paying attention to that. And then two, start prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Do not let that 7 to 9 hour goal be a major stressor. Stress is going to negatively impact your ability to sleep. Just make an effort and let that be enough. And if you want to keep this momentum going and continue building a more holistic lifestyle, one that actually supports your energy, hormones, and sleep, then come join me and all the other amazing humans who are learning how to care for themselves naturally and confidently. Pull up the internet and head over to thehealthhabit.net/newsletter or click the link in my show notes and let's get connected, baby. There's no need to navigate everything all by yourself. Hello, beautiful human. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something new and felt inspired or blessed. If so, please take a moment to share this with a friend who's also working to improve their health and wellness. And leave me an honest review on Apple Podcasts. It lights me up to know that this podcast is helping you. Now, go get some sunshine on your skin, and I will meet you back here on Saturday morning for another episode. Bye!